I'm done. He didn't whisper it. He didn't wait until we got home. He set it into a champagne glass like it was a joke everyone should laugh at. The restaurant was warm and pretty. Soft lights, clinking silverware, that quiet fancy music that makes people feel important. The kind of place where you're supposed to celebrate. Tonight was supposed to be my daughter's celebration. My name is Lauren. I'm 34. And the man standing at the head of the table, my husband Mark, 39, was smiling like he'd been practicing this moment in the mirror. My daughter Emily is 16. She just earned a scholarship. Real one. The kind of news you frame. The kind of night you remember forever. I had pictured her laughing, taking pictures, feeling proud. Instead, Mark lifted his glass, looked around the table at our family and friends, and chose to burn the whole room down with one sentence. I'm starting over, he said loud and clear. Without Lauren. The air went weird, heavy, like someone dropped a blanket over everyone's mouths. Emily's smile collapsed. Her eyes darted between us like she was trying to rewind time. Dad, she said, barely audible. Like she needed him to correct it. Like she needed it to be a misunderstanding. Mark didn't even look at her first. He looked at me. And I swear, this is the part that still makes my skin crawl. He looked at me like he was waiting. Waiting for tears. Waiting for me to shake. Waiting for me to beg him not to ruin us in front of everybody. 'Cause that's what I used to do. I used to soften everything. I used to carry the embarrassment for both of us. But something inside me went quiet. Not numb. Not broken. Just still. I took a slow breath. I set my fork down neatly like we were discussing the weather. And I said, okay. Just that. Babe. Mark's smile twitched. Just a tiny crack. Like he didn't recognize me. You're not going to, he started. Cry. I finished for him. My voice came out calm, almost gentle. Not tonight. Emily grabbed my hand under the table so tight my fingers tingled. Mom, please, she whispered, eyes glossy. Please don't do this here. I turned slightly toward her. Not fully, because I didn't want Mark to think I was losing control. Sweetheart, I said softly, this is still your night. Don't let him steal it. Mark cleared his throat like my calm was messing up his script. Lauren, he said, lowering his voice like I was the problem. Don't make a scene. I blinked at him. Slowly. A scene. I repeated. You stood up at our daughter's dinner to announce you're leaving your wife. A couple people shifted in their seats. Someone stared into their drink like it was suddenly fascinating. And that's when I saw her. Not at our table, of course not. Across the room. At a booth near the window. A woman with perfect hair, a sharp red lip, and a posture that screamed confidence. She wasn't looking away. She was watching me. Like she expected me to fall apart. Her name was Vanessa. I knew it because I'd seen it on Mark's phone, weeks ago, lit up on his screen like a warning I didn't want to read. Vanessa's eyes met mine and she gave me this tiny, smug smile. Just a flash. Like, finally. He did it. My stomach didn't drop. Settled. Like a lock clicking into place. I reached into my purse, pulled out a plain envelope, and set it beside Mark's plate. Quietly. No drama. Mark's face changed instantly. What's that? He asked, and for the first time all night his voice wasn't steady. I leaned in, just enough so only he could hear me. Something you should read, I said. Alone. Emily tugged my hand again. Mom, what is that? I squeezed her fingers. I'm okay, I said, even though my heart was pounding so hard it felt loud. Mark stared at the envelope like it could bite him. Because men don't get scared of paper. Unless the paper has the one thing they can't talk their way out of. His fingers slid forward. Hesitated. Then he started to open it. And I watched his smile disappear. Slowly, like someone blew out a candle. He looked up at me, eyes suddenly wide. Lauren, he whispered. And I held his gaze. Controlled. Yeah, I said quietly. Now we can talk. But not here. Not in front of Emily. Because the moment he tried to humiliate me, I realized something. Mark thought I didn't know the whole truth. He was wrong. And the second he reads what's inside that envelope, everything is going to change. Mark's hand froze halfway through opening the envelope, and I watched him do that thing people do when they're trying to keep control of their face, while their whole world is slipping. He glanced around the table like he suddenly remembered there were witnesses, like he could rewind his own mouth. "Lauren," he said again, quieter now. "Not here." I didn't answer him right away. I looked at Emily, because she was staring at that envelope like it was a bomb, like she could feel something awful ticking inside it. "Hey," I said softly, squeezing her hand. "Look at me." Her eyes were wet. Not tears falling, just that glassy, painful shine. The kind kids get when they're trying to be brave for a parent. "What did you do?" she whispered. And that question, it sliced me. Because she wasn't asking Mark. She was asking me, like I was the one who broke the night. I leaned closer. My voice stayed calm, but my heart wasn't calm. My heart was sprinting. "I didn't do anything wrong," I told her. "And neither did you." "Okay." Emily swallowed hard. "Then why is he?" "I know," I cut in gently. "I know. Just stay with me." Mark straightened his shoulders like he was about to switch back into performance mode. He lifted his glass again, like he could pretend the last 30 seconds didn't happen. "Everyone," he started, forcing a laugh. "I think emotions are high." "No," I said. Not loud, just firm. The whole table went still again. I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back with that soft scrape that always feels louder than it is. I looked around at the faces, some shocked, some uncomfortable, some pretending to focus on their plates. "I'm taking my daughter home," I said. "Enjoy your dinner." That's it. No tears. No pleading. No explaining. Because I wasn't going to bleed out in public so people could gossip about the shape of my pain later. Emily stood too, shaky but following me. Mark reached for her. "Emily, sit down." I moved between them without thinking. Mark's eyes flashed, anger, irritation, something darker. But he forced his voice into that controlled, polite tone. "Lauren," he said through his teeth, "don't turn her against me." I almost laughed. Almost. Because the audacity was unreal. "You did that all by yourself," I said quietly. Emily's breath hitched. Mark's jaw tightened. And for the first time I saw panic underneath his ego. Real panic. 'Cause he wasn't losing me. He was losing the version of me that stayed quiet. We started walking. Past the table. Past the staring eyes. Past the fancy decor and the soft music that suddenly sounded fake. And the whole time, I could feel Vanessa watching. That smug confidence. That I won energy. I didn't look at her. Not yet. I didn't want her to have the satisfaction of seeing my face up close. Not when she'd been feeding off my humiliation from a distance. In the lobby, Emily finally broke. Not screaming. Not dramatic. Just a small sound. Like her chest couldn't hold it in anymore. "Mom," she whispered, voice shaking. "What is happening?" I pulled her into my arms right there, in the middle of the restaurant lobby, and I held her tight. Kept my voice low. "Teddy." "Something I should have ended a long time ago," I said. Emily pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes were searching my face like she was trying to find the moment her life changed. "Did he cheat?" she asked. That word hung there. I felt it land in my stomach like a stone. "I don't want to talk about it here," I said. "But yes, he did." Emily's face crumpled. And then she did something that stunned me. She got angry. Like real anger, not teenage attitude. "I knew it," she snapped, wiping her cheek hard. "I knew something was wrong. He's been different. Like he doesn't even see us." My throat tightened. Because she'd been watching quietly all this time. Carrying confusion on her own. Behind us the doors opened. Mark's footsteps. Yes. He caught up in the lobby, looking irritated, but I could see it. His eyes kept flicking toward the envelope like he was trying to decide whether to grab it back from his own plate. Lauren, he said too sharply for a public place. Get in the car. We need to talk. Emily stiffened beside me. I'm not going anywhere with you. Mark turned on her instantly. Excuse me. I stepped in again. Don't, I said. One word. And for a second he looked like he wanted to explode. Then he remembered people were watching. He lowered his voice. You think you're being strong right now, but you're being reckless. Reckless. I repeated, almost amused. I'm just done protecting your image. Mark's face tightened. He leaned in closer, and his voice dropped into something colder. You have no idea what you just started. I held his gaze. I do, I said. And that's why you're scared. Mark's eyes darted, over my shoulder. And when I followed his gaze, I saw Vanessa. She was standing near the entrance now, like she'd decided she didn't want to be a background character anymore. And she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her. Older. Expensive suit. Smile. He looked at Mark like they knew each other. Like they'd planned something. Mark's face went pale. And I felt it deep, immediate, sickening realization. This wasn't just about an affair. This was something bigger. Something Mark never thought I'd see. The man met my eyes, just for a second, and gave me a polite little nod. Like he was greeting someone he expected to deal with. Then he turned to Mark and said, clear as day. Are you ready to tell her, or should I? That sentence didn't just land. It hit. Like a door slamming shut behind me. For a second, everything blurred. The lobby lights, the soft music, the murmur of people pretending not to stare. And all I could focus on was Mark's face. Because Mark, my confident, smug, I'm starting over Mark, looked like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. His mouth opened, closed. His eyes flicked to me, then to Emily, then back to the man in the suit like he was silently begging him to stop talking. Vanessa stood beside the man like she belonged there, like she was proud of this moment, like she'd been waiting for me to finally find out I wasn't the only one in the room. Emily whispered, Mom, who is that? I didn't answer her right away, because I was staring at Mark, and suddenly I wasn't just looking at my husband. I was looking at a stranger. The man stepped forward slightly, calm as a doctor delivering a diagnosis. Lauren, right, he said smoothly. I'm Richard Hale. The way he said his name, like it came with authority, made my stomach tighten. Mark finally found his voice. Richard, this isn't the time. Richard didn't even glance at him. Instead, he looked directly at me. Polite, controlled, dangerous. I'm sorry, he said, but I don't like watching people get blindsided, especially in public. Vanessa's lips curled into the faintest smile, like blindside was her favorite word. I felt Emily press closer to me. I put my arm around her shoulder without thinking. What is this? I asked. My voice sounded steady, but inside my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Richard's eyes flicked to Emily, and for the first time I saw something like hesitation, like he remembered there was a kid here, a real person, not just collateral damage. He softened his tone slightly. Maybe this isn't a conversation for the lobby. Mark jumped on that. Exactly. We'll handle it at home. No, I said. One word. Firm. Mark's eyes snapped to me. Lauren. I said no, I repeated louder this time. Couple walking by slowed down. Someone near the host's stand pretended to check their phone while clearly listening. Mark's jaw flexed. He was trapped between wanting to control me and wanting to look decent. Richard sighed like he'd seen this 100 times. All right, he said. Short version. Mark is involved in a business situation. And it affects you. Emily blinked. Business. Vanessa let out a tiny laugh. Too casual, too proud. Oh my God, Mark. Just tell her. Mark shot her a look that could have cut glass. Stop. That word stop told me everything. Vanessa wasn't just some random affair. She wasn't a secret fling. She was part of whatever this was. I stared at Mark. What did you do? He tried to smile. That fake calm smile he always used when he wanted to shrink my reality. Lauren, you're making this bigger than it is. Richard shook his head slightly, like Mark was an idiot. Actually, Richard said, it is as big as it feels. Mark has been restructuring assets. I felt the air leave my lungs. Assets, I repeated. Mark's eyes went sharp. Richard. Richard held up one hand, like Mark was a child interrupting adults. Lauren, he continued, there are documents, transfers, plan in motion. And the way Mark announced tonight wasn't impulsive. Emily's grip tightened on my arm. Mom, what does that mean? I swallowed. It meant Mark didn't just decide to leave. He decided to win. I turned my head slightly toward Emily, trying to keep my voice gentle. It means your dad has been planning things without telling us. Mark snapped. Don't put her in this. I looked at him, my eyes hard. You put her in this the second you stood up at her dinner and humiliated her. For a second, Mark's face flashed with something ugly. Then he forced it down. Richard's gaze went to my purse. You gave him an envelope. I didn't react. Not outwardly. But inside I felt a cold spark. Yes, I said. Mark's voice dropped. Lauren, don't. That was the first time all night he sounded genuinely afraid. Emily's eyes went wide. Mom, what's in it? I hesitated. Not because I didn't want Emily to know the truth, but because I didn't want her to have to carry it tonight. I turned back to Richard. Why are you here? Richard exhaled slowly. Because Mark has been careless. And I don't want Vanessa implicated if things go sideways. Vanessa's smile vanished. Excuse me. So even Vanessa didn't know she could be thrown under the bus. Interesting. Mark's voice rose sharp. Richard, you're not helping. Richard leaned in toward Mark, and his voice got quiet enough to feel like a threat. You're the one who made it public, he said. So now it's public. Mark's eyes darted around again like he was calculating, like he was looking for the easiest way to regain control. Then his gaze locked onto my purse. Envelope. My proof. And I saw it, the decision. A split-second shift in his posture. His hand moved. Pressed. Not a gentle reach. Not a polite gesture. Grab. Emily gasped as Mark lunged toward my purse. And in that instant, all the calm in my body snapped into something sharper. I stepped back, yanking my purse against my side like it was a shield. Don't touch me, I said, voice low. Mark froze. Richard's eyes narrowed. Vanessa whispered. Mark, what are you doing? Mark's breathing was heavier now, his mask slipping. You don't get to do this, he hissed at me. You don't get to ruin me. I stared at him. You ruined yourself, I said. I'm just finally watching. Mark's eyes flicked to Emily, and his tone changed instantly. Sweet, manipulative. He said softly. Come with me. Let your mom cool down. Emily didn't move. She looked at him like she didn't recognize him either. And then she said, voice shaking but clear. No. Mark's face went tight. And Richard, calm Richard, pulled something from his pocket. Folder. He held it out slightly, angled toward me. Lauren, he said, before you walk away, you should know what Mark filed this morning. My blood turned cold. Filed. I stared at the folder like it was a weapon. What did he file? I asked, barely breathing. Richard's eyes didn't blink. And Mark's face went completely gray. Richard opened the folder. And the first word I saw at the top of the page made my knees go weak. Petition. The word petition stared up at me like it was alive. Like it had teeth. I remember my fingers going cold first. Not my heart. My heart was still pounding like a drum. But my hands went numb, like my body was trying to protect me from what my eyes were about to understand. Richard held the folder steady, angled toward me, and Mark just stood there. Not talking. Not smiling. Not performing. He looked like a man caught mid-crime. Emily's voice came out thin. Is that divorce? Mark snapped out of his freeze and immediately tried to grab control again. "It's paperwork," he said fast. "It doesn't mean anything yet." Richard's eyebrows lifted slightly like, "Sure, buddy." I didn't even look at Mark. Couldn't. Not yet. Because if I looked at him, I was afraid I'd lose the calm I was holding together with my teeth. Instead, I focused on the page. Yeah, it was divorce. But not the "we tried, it didn't work, let's be mature" kind. Well, this was cold. Strategic. Plan. Richard tapped the page with one finger. "Filed this morning," he said. "Temporary orders requested." "Temporary orders," I repeated. He glanced at Emily again, like he didn't want to say too much in front of her. But the truth was already bleeding out anyway. "It means," Richard said carefully, "he's asking the court to make decisions immediately, before you even have a chance to respond." Mark lunged a half-step forward. "Richard, shut up." Vanessa's head snapped toward him. "Wait, what are you asking for?" Mark ignored her. His eyes were on me now. Hard. "Lauren," he said like he was talking to a stubborn employee, "you're not reading that here." I finally met his gaze. And I saw it. Not guilt. Not sadness. Not regret. Control. He was still trying to control how I found out he'd been quietly setting fire to my life. I turned back to the petition. My eyes skimmed down the page, and every line felt like a punch. Property. Counts. Marital residence. A request to freeze certain assets. Then I saw the part that made my stomach flip. Temporary custody. Emily sucked in a sharp breath. I felt her body stiffen beside me like she'd been slapped. "What?" she whispered. Mark's voice got soft. "Fix off." The tone he used when he wanted to look like the reasonable one. It's not like that. It's just procedure." Richard exhaled, almost annoyed. "It's exactly like that." Mark's eyes flashed. "You're enjoying this." Richard didn't flinch. "I'm preventing a mess. You created one." Emily stared at Mark now, her face tight with disbelief. "Dad, you're trying to take me." Mark spread his hands like he was the victim. "No one is taking you. I'm trying to keep things stable." "Stable?" Emily's voice cracked. "You announced you're leaving Mom at my dinner." Mark's jaw clenched, and I felt something shift inside me, something protective and sharp. I stepped closer to the petition and read again, slower this time, forcing my brain to stay clear. Then my eyes caught a phrase that made my chest tighten. Irreconcilable differences due to respondent's unpredictable behavior. Respondent. That was me. Unpredictable. I looked at Mark slowly. "What did you tell them about me?" Mark's face didn't change, but his eyes did. That tiny flicker. That calculation. "Lauren, don't do this," he said low. "Not in front of her." I laughed once. Just a short, bitter sound. "Oh, now you care about in front of her." Emily's breathing was faster now. Could hear it. Richard cleared his throat. "There's more." My stomach dropped. "More." He slid the page down slightly, exposing the section below. And there it was. A request for exclusive use of the marital home. Meaning he wanted me out. Out of my own house. Out of my daughter's space. Out of the life I'd been building while he was building his escape route. Vanessa's voice cut in sharp. "Mark. You told me this was going to be clean." Mark snapped his head toward her. "Not now." Vanessa took a step forward anyway, angry now, not smug. "You said she'd sign and move on. You said she wouldn't fight." He didn't answer her. And that silence told me everything. They didn't just plan to leave me. They planned to steamroll me. Emily's eyes filled again, but she blinked hard like she refused to cry in front of him. "Mom. Did he really? Can he do that?" I turned slightly toward her, voice soft but steady. "He can try." Mark's face hardened. "You're not going to turn this into a war." I looked him dead in the eyes. "You already did." Richard shifted the folder in his hand, and something slipped out. Another page. It fluttered slightly, and my eyes caught a line near the bottom. signature line, froze. Because the name on it was mine. Lauren Carter. Dated. My mouth went dry. That's not my signature. Mark's eyes widened just a fraction, then he masked it. Richard's voice dropped. Yeah. That's why I came. Emily's voice turned into a whisper, terrified. Dad. Did you forge Mom's signature? Mark's face twisted. No. Don't be ridiculous. But his voice wasn't convincing. Not anymore. 'Cause the ink was there. My name was there. Like I'd agreed to give him everything. Like I'd agreed to lose. I grabbed the page, careful like it could burn, and stared at the signature again. Then I looked up at Mark, my voice barely above a breath. Tell me you didn't do this. Mark didn't answer right away. He just stared back at me. And for the first time I saw the truth behind his eyes. Not love. Not family. A man who'd decided I was an obstacle. And then he said, quiet and cold. You were never supposed to see that page tonight. I stared at my own name on that page. And it felt like watching someone try to erase me while I was still standing there. Lauren Carter. Dated. Neat little curve at the end, like it was done carefully, like it was practiced. And Mark, my husband, looked me dead in the eyes and said, you were never supposed to see that page tonight. Not, I'm sorry. Not, that's not what it looks like. Not even, I messed up. Just that. Like the problem wasn't what he did. The problem was that I caught him. Emily's voice shook. Dad, answer me. Mark didn't look at her. He looked at me like he was trying to speak to the part of me that used to fold. Lauren, he said softly. Give me the paper. I held it tighter. Why? Asked. My voice didn't rise. Drop. So you can pretend it never happened. He took a step closer. You're spiraling. That word was a weapon. And I felt it immediately. How he was going to play this. Lauren's unstable. Lauren's emotional. Lauren's unpredictable. I turned my head slightly. Just enough to look at Emily. I needed her to see my face. I needed her to see I wasn't breaking. I said gently. Go stand by the door. She didn't want to. Could see it. She wanted to stay between us like her body could stop the damage. But she nodded. Low. And she moved. Mark's eyes narrowed. Don't do that. Do what? Asked. Act like I'm dangerous, he snapped. I held his gaze. You forged my signature, Mark. You filed for custody. You planned to push me out of my house. What do you call that? His mouth tightened. He looked away for half a second, just long enough to reset his mask. Then he looked back, calm again. I'm protecting myself, he said. I let that sit in the air. Then I turned to Richard because the truth was suddenly simple. I didn't trust Mark to tell me anything real. Richard, I said. Do you have copies? Richard hesitated, then nodded once. Yes. Good, I said. Because this page isn't leaving my sight. Mark's voice sharpened. Lauren. Cut him off. Don't. Not another word. And that's when Vanessa stepped in finally, like she couldn't stand being ignored anymore. Lauren, she said, using my name like she had a right to it. This doesn't have to be ugly. I turned slowly and looked at her for the first time all night. Up close, she wasn't some mysterious shadow. She was real. Makeup. Perfume. Confidence that came from believing she was chosen. Ugly. I repeated. Quietly. You sat there tonight and watched him humiliate my daughter. Vanessa's face flickered. I didn't. Yes, you did, I said, my voice still calm, which seemed to bother her more than anger would have. You watched. And you smiled. Mark barked. Lauren, stop. I looked at him. Or what? Silence. And in that silence I realized something terrifying. He didn't need threats anymore. He had paper. He had the court. He had a plan. Emily's voice came from the door. Small but fierce. Mom, let's go. I didn't hesitate. I slipped the petition page into my purse like it was evidence in a crime, which honestly it was, and I wrapped my arm around Emily's shoulders. Mark moved fast. Emily, you're staying with me. Emily flinched like the words were a slap. No, she said, shaking. I'm not. Mark's face darkened. Emily. I stepped in front of her. She said no. Mark pointed at me like I was a problem that needed to be handled. You're not taking her, he said. I tilted my head. Watch me. And I started walking. Not running. Not rushing. Walking. Because I refused to look like the unstable woman he wanted to paint me as. We moved through the lobby, out into the cold night air, and I didn't breathe fully until the car door shut behind us. Emily's hands were trembling. She pressed her palms to her face like she was trying to hold herself together. I feel like I'm gonna throw up, she whispered. I reached over and took her hand. I've got you. Her voice broke. How long has this been happening? I didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was, I didn't know the full timeline. I just knew it wasn't new. Long enough that he thought I'd never fight back, I said. Emily turned to me, eyes wet. Are you going to fight? I stared straight ahead. My jaw clenched. Yes, I said. I am. Because the moment he used the word spiraling, I understood the real plan. He wasn't just leaving. He was trying to make me look unfit. Trying to make me look unstable. Trying to win custody by making me look like a woman who couldn't be trusted. I pulled out my phone with one hand, still holding Emily's with the other. And I did something I never thought I'd have to do in my own marriage. I hit record. Just in case. Emily blinked at me. Mom, what are you doing? Protecting us, I said softly. And right on cue my phone lit up. Mark calling. I answered on speaker. Lauren, he said, voice low and controlled. Don't make this worse. I didn't speak. I let him fill the silence. Go home, he said. We'll talk privately. About the forged signature. Yes. Beep. Then he said it. The sentence that made my blood run cold. I did what I had to do, Mark murmured. You would have dragged this out. You would have tried to take everything. Emily's breath hitched beside me. And I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt, because I finally had it. Not a suspicion. Not a feeling. An admission. Kept my voice flat. You filed for custody today. Temporary, he snapped. It doesn't mean anything. It means you tried to take my child, I said. Mark's voice turned sharp again. Don't twist this. Emily leaned toward the phone, trembling. Dad, how could you? Mark went silent. And then he did something that made my skin crawl. He ignored her. Like she wasn't even there. He spoke only to me. Lauren, he said, if you don't come home tonight, you're going to regret it. My stomach tightened. Is that a threat? No, he said smoothly. It's advice. I stared out at the dark parking lot, at the restaurant doors, at the life I thought I had. Then I said, slow and clear, I'm not coming home. Mark exhaled, controlled anger. Fine, he said. Then don't act surprised when things move fast. The call ended. Emily stared at me, eyes wide. What does that mean? I didn't answer her. 'Cause my phone buzzed again. Not Mark this time. A notification from my bank. And the subject line made my heart slam into my ribs. Your account access has been updated. Opened it. And the words on the screen stole the air from my lungs. Because the name listed as primary account holder wasn't me anymore. Your account access has been updated. That notification sat on my screen like a threat. Like a hand closing around my throat. I stared at it for 1 second too long, hoping, stupidly, there was some innocent explanation. Glitch. Security update. Anything. But my gut already knew. Because Mark never fought loud. He fought quiet. With paperwork. With timing. With buttons you don't notice until you can't breathe. Emily was beside me in the passenger seat, hugging herself like she was trying to hold her own body together. Mom, what is it? She whispered. I didn't answer. Not because I was ignoring her. Because if I spoke right then, my voice was going to crack. And I refused to give Mark that satisfaction, even when he wasn't there. I opened my banking app. Login failed. I tried again, slower, like the screen might feel my panic. Still failed. My fingers went cold. My stomach sank so deep it felt like it hit the floorboard. Checked my email. There it was. Second message. Your account profile has been changed. I swallowed so hard it hurt. Then I did something I never thought I'd do in my own life. I called my bank, like I was calling 911. The automated voice was cheerful, bright, like my life wasn't on fire. Please hold. Emily leaned closer. Mom, please talk to me. I finally looked at her, and I softened my face just enough to keep her from spiraling. Your dad, I said carefully. He moved something. Emily's eyes widened. Money. I nodded once. Her mouth opened then closed. Like she couldn't even find the right word to describe how disgusting it felt. Because money isn't just money when you're a kid. It's security. It's groceries. It's school clothes. It's the roof. It's the world staying normal. The line clicked. A woman answered. Thank you for calling. How can I help? My account access was changed, I said, keeping my voice even. I didn't authorize it. There was a pause. Typing. Then, I can see a profile update. It looks like the primary access was modified. My heart hammered. Modified how? Another pause. And then she said it casually, like she was reading off the weather. It appears your husband made a change as a joint account holder. That word. That little legal word that sounded harmless for years, like teamwork. Now it sounded like a trap. So he can just lock me out. Yes. I'm sorry, she said, but joint holders can adjust permissions. Even without my consent. I'm afraid so. Emily made a small sound. Half gasp, half sob. I squeezed the phone harder. Okay, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. Tell me what else changed. Typing again. Then the woman hesitated. Just enough to make my blood go colder. There were transfers made today, she said. How much? Another pause. And then she gave me a number that made the inside of my head go quiet. Not because I fainted. Because my brain refused to accept it. It was enough. Enough that it wasn't petty. Enough that it was intentional. Enough that he wasn't just trying to hurt me. He was trying to disable me. I blinked hard. Where did it go? I can't disclose the receiving account details, she said carefully. But I can confirm it was internal, within your institution. Mark had prepared for this. Of course he did. My voice came out low. Can you freeze anything? I can place a fraud note, she said. But since he's a joint holder, it may be considered authorized activity. Authorized. Even if it was immoral. Even if it was strategic cruelty. Emily whispered. He stole from us. I stared at the dashboard like I could see the next step through the windshield. Then I said into the phone, slow and sharp. I want a supervisor. There was silence. Then, one moment. While I waited, I opened my messages. Mark had texted. Don't do anything stupid. Go home. I didn't reply. I scrolled again. A second text. If you make this hard, it gets hard. Emily saw it. Her face twisted with disgust. That's a threat, she whispered. Kept breathing. Controlled. Because panic was what he wanted. The supervisor came on. More serious voice. Less cheerful. I explained everything in short, clean sentences. Changed access. Transfers. Divorce petition. Forged signature. There was a longer pause on the line this time. Then the supervisor said, Ma'am, I strongly recommend you come into a branch first thing in the morning with identification. We can open a new account in your name only. But tonight, I can't reverse joint holder activity without an investigation. So the plan was clear. Tonight, survival. Tomorrow. I ended the call and finally let my shoulders drop a fraction. Emily's voice shook. Where are we going? I stared straight ahead, hands tight on the steering wheel. Somewhere safe, I said. Somewhere he can't walk into and start controlling the air. I pulled up my contacts and called the one person I trusted without hesitation. Usha. She picked up on the second ring. Lauren. Tash, I said, and the second I heard her voice, my chest tightened. I need you. No questions. No drama. Where are you? She asked, instantly alert. I'm in the parking lot, I said. Mark, he filed something. He tried to. I swallowed. He's trying to take Emily. Emily flinched at her name. Tasha's voice sharpened. Oh my God. Are you safe? For now. Come to my place, she said. Right now. And Lauren, don't go home. Not tonight. Exhaled. Okay. Then Tasha added, quieter. Do you have any proof? I glanced at my purse. The petition page. The recording. Yes, I said. I have proof. Good, she said. Because he's going to lie. We started driving. Emily sat silent, staring out the window, and I could feel her trying not to break. Trying not to be the kid whose life just got announced like a toast. Halfway there, my phone buzzed again. New email. Subject line. Payment method removed. Opened it. It was our phone plan. Mark had removed my card. Then another buzz. Streaming account signed out. Then another. Home security settings updated. My breath caught. He wasn't just moving money. He was cutting cords. Making sure that by the time I woke up tomorrow, I'd have no access to anything that felt like normal. Emily's voice trembled. Mom. Is he going to turn off my phone too? I swallowed. If he thinks it controls us, he'll try. Emily's eyes flashed, angry now. I hate him. I didn't correct her. Because for the first time, I wasn't protecting his image from my own child. My phone rang again. Mark. I didn't want to answer. But then I remembered. I was recording. I hit speaker. Lauren, Mark said, voice smooth like he was calling about groceries. Where are you? Kept my tone neutral. With Emily. You need to bring her home, he said. Now. Emily leaned forward, whispering to me. Don't. Kept the phone steady. She's with me. She's safe. Mark's voice tightened. You're making a serious mistake. Is this about Emily? I asked. Or about control? He laughed once, cold. You always do this. You twist things. You make me the villain. I let a beat of silence hang. Then I said, Mark, did you lock me out of my accounts? Another beat. And then, like he couldn't resist proving he still had power, he said calmly, I told you things would move fast. Emily's face went pale. Kept my voice low. So yes. Mark didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just said, if you don't come home tonight, I'll file an emergency order in the morning. My stomach clenched. For what? For custody, he said. And I'll win. Because you're emotional and you're unstable, and I have the paperwork. Unstable. There it was again. The word he wanted to stamp on my forehead. Emily's voice burst out, shaking. Dad, stop. Mark ignored her. Again. He spoke only to me. Last chance, Lauren. Come home. I stared at the road, at the dark, at the headlights stretching forward like a tunnel. Then I said, clear and steady. No. The line went dead. And right after it ended, like the universe decided to twist the knife, I saw flashing lights in my rearview mirror. Red. Blue. Closing in. Emily's voice rose, panicked. Mom, are we in trouble? My hands tightened on the wheel. Because I didn't know if that patrol car was random. Or if Mark had already made his first move. The red and blue lights filled my rearview mirror so fast it felt unreal. Like someone hit a switch. 1 second I was driving through the dark trying to get my daughter somewhere safe. And the next, my whole car was bathed in flashing color. My hands locked on the steering wheel. My mouth went dry. Emily turned toward the back window, eyes wide. Mom, what did we do? Nothing, I said, but my voice came out too tight. We did nothing. I signaled, slowed down, pulled over. And I swear. The moment I stopped, my phone buzzed again. Text. From Mark. Told you it would move fast. My stomach dropped. Emily saw it. Her face changed. fear mixing with rage. "He did this," she whispered. "Not a question. Fact." I forced my breathing to stay slow. "Listen to me," I said quietly. "You're going to stay calm." "I'm going to stay calm." "Okay." Emily nodded fast, but she was shaking. The officer walked up to my window, flashlight sweeping the inside of my car. He wasn't aggressive, but he wasn't relaxed either. That kind of careful, alert energy. "Ma'am," he said, polite but firm. "License and registration." I handed it over with steady hands I didn't actually have. He glanced at Emily. "Is everything all right here?" "Yes," I said immediately. "That's my daughter. We're fine." Emily swallowed. "I'm fine," she echoed, but her voice cracked. The officer didn't leave right away. He looked at Emily again, then at me, then back at Emily. "Ma'am," he said, lowering his voice a notch. "We got a call." My heart thudded. "A call?" He nodded. "A welfare check. Possible family dispute." Of course Mark didn't start with court. He started with the story. Emily's fingers clenched around the seatbelt. "He called the police on us," she whispered, like her brain couldn't accept it. The officer heard her. His expression stayed neutral, but his eyes sharpened a little. "Miss," he said gently, "I'm going to ask you a question, okay? And I want you to answer honestly." Emily looked at me first. He nodded. "Tell the truth," I said softly. "Always." The officer angled his body slightly, like he was trying to give her a little space even in this moment. "Are you here with your mom because you want to be?" he asked. Emily's voice was shaky but clear. "Yes." "Did your mom force you to leave?" "No." "Are you scared of your mom?" Emily almost laughed through the tears. "No." The officer watched her for a beat longer. Then he nodded. "All right," he said. "Thank you." He stepped back and spoke into his radio quietly. I couldn't hear the words, but I could hear the tone. Procedure. Paperwork. A checkbox moment that could change the entire direction of my life depending on what someone typed into a computer. He came back to the window. "Ma'am," he said, "your husband reported that you took your daughter and left after a disturbance. He said he's concerned about her safety." Emily made a sound like she'd been punched. I felt my jaw tighten so hard it hurt. "He announced he was leaving me in front of everyone," I said carefully, choosing each word like it mattered, because it did. "During my daughter's celebration dinner. Then he threatened me on the phone. I have the call recorded." The officer's eyes flicked up. "You recorded him?" "Yes," I said. "And my daughter can tell you she didn't feel safe going with him." Emily nodded hard. I don't feel safe with him right now." The officer looked at her, then back at me. "Do you have any court orders in place?" he asked. "No," I said. "Does he?" he asked. "Not that I've been served," I said, and I watched his face shift slightly at the phrase. "'Cause adults know what that means. Means something might be coming." The officer exhaled. "Okay. Here's the reality, ma'am. Without a custody order, both parents generally have rights. This is usually a family court matter." "I understand," I said, even though my throat was burning. He held my license for another second. "Do you have somewhere safe you're going tonight?" "Yes," I said. "A friend's home." He paused. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me." His voice softened just a little. "Don't escalate this on the road. Get where you're going. Keep your daughter calm. And in the morning, get legal advice. Fast." My chest tightened. 'Cause that wasn't just advice. That was a warning. He handed my license back. "You're free to go," he said. "But if he files an emergency order tonight, that changes things." Emily's voice shook. "He can do that." The officer didn't answer her directly. He just said, "Drive safe," and stepped away. I pulled back onto the road, hands trembling now that the adrenaline had somewhere to go. Emily stared straight ahead, silent, tears slipping down her cheeks like she didn't even have energy to wipe them anymore. And I hated Mark for that. Not just for the cheating. Not just for the papers. For making our daughter feel hunted. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mark. I know where you are. My blood went cold. Emily looked down at her own phone and suddenly went pale. Mom, she whispered. What? Her voice dropped to nothing. My phone. It says Dad can see my location. I felt my chest tighten so hard it hurt to breathe. Course he could. Family location sharing. Plans. Settings he controlled. Things we never thought twice about because we thought we were safe. Tasha's voice replayed in my head. He's going to lie. Mark didn't just lie. He tracked. He controlled. He hunted for the quickest way to corner me into obedience. We reached Tasha's neighborhood about 10 minutes later. My pulse was still racing. I turned onto her street and slowed down near her house. And that's when I saw it. Car parked across the way. Familiar shape. Familiar color. My stomach dropped straight through me. Emily's breath caught. Mom, is that? I stared harder. Yeah. It was Mark's car. Sitting there like a threat. Like a message. Like he'd been waiting. My hands tightened on the wheel. Because if Mark was here, then he didn't just call the police. He knew exactly where to find us. And right as that realization hit, someone stepped off the sidewalk and walked toward my driver's side window. Not Mark. A man in neutral clothes. Clipboard in hand. He knocked twice polite. I cracked the window an inch. Lauren Carter, he asked. My throat went dry. Yes. He held out an envelope. You've been served, he said calmly. I took it with fingers that didn't feel like mine. I looked down. Big bold letters across the top. Emergency custody hearing. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Emily's voice came out like a sob. Mom. And I just sat there staring at the paper, hearing Mark's text in my head like an echo. Told you it would move fast. The judge hadn't even sat down yet. And Mark was already smiling. Not a warm smile. Not a nervous smile. The kind of smile you wear when you think the ending is already written. Emily gripped my hand so tight my fingers ached. I could feel her shaking beside me, trying to hide it, trying to be strong like she'd seen me be strong. But she was 16. She was a kid. And she was sitting in a courthouse at 9 in the morning because her father decided to turn our lives into a lawsuit overnight. I leaned closer to her and whispered, "Just breathe. Stay with me." She nodded, but her eyes were locked across the room. Mark. He stood there in a crisp button-down, looking polished, calm, almost proud. Like last night's chaos was just a step in his plan. And next to him, of course, was Vanessa. Not hiding anymore. Not sitting across the room like a shadow. She was right there, close enough to touch him, like she wanted everyone to see she'd won. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face still. Because if Mark wanted a show, he wasn't getting one from me. Tasha sat behind us, one hand on Emily's shoulder, steady as a wall. She'd barely slept. Neither had I. We spent the night on her couch, phone buzzing every hour with another notification, another account change, another little piece of my normal life being ripped away. And right before sunrise, I made the call that saved me. Lawyer. Her name was Jessica Price. Mid-40s. Voice. Sharp eyes. The kind of woman who doesn't waste words, and doesn't flinch when men like Mark puff up and perform. She walked into the courthouse like she belonged there, because she did, and she didn't even look at Mark first. She looked at me. "Lauren," she said quietly, "tell me everything in one clean timeline." So I did. Dinner. The announcement. Vanessa. Richard. The petition. The forged signature. The bank lockout. The recorded call. Police stop. The emergency hearing. Jessica didn't react with shock. She reacted with focus. When I finished, she nodded once and said something that hit me like oxygen. "Good. He moved fast," she said. "But he got sloppy." Then she held out her hand. "Give me your phone." I handed it over, and my fingers were still trembling. Not fear. Not weakness. Adrenaline. Jessica listened to Mark's recorded voice. I told you things would move fast. I did what I had to do. And her expression didn't change. But her eyes did. They got colder. Perfect, she murmured. Perfect. Not because my life was perfect. Because evidence was. The bailiff called the case, and suddenly it was real. The room shifted. People stood. The judge entered. My mouth went dry. Mark's attorney went first. Some guy with a smooth voice and a clean suit who spoke like we were talking about property, not people. He said I removed the child without consent. He said Mark was concerned about instability. He used words like emotional, unpredictable, volatile. I sat there listening to my personality get rewritten into a threat. Emily's nails dug into my palm. Then Mark took the stand. And this man looked the judge in the eye and said, I just want what's best for my daughter. Like he hadn't shattered her night in public. Like he hadn't tried to corner me with the police. Like he hadn't locked me out of our finances at midnight. The judge asked him, Did you file this petition yesterday? Yes, Mark said smoothly. Did you request temporary custody? Yes. And did you have reason to believe the child was in danger? Mark paused. Just long enough to pretend he was thoughtful. I was concerned, he said, voice soft. Lauren has been spiraling. That word again. Spiraling. Jessica's hand lifted slightly, a quiet signal to me. Let him talk. So I watched him dig. Jessica stood when it was our turn. Your Honor, she said, calm and clean. We're going to address 3 things today. She held up one finger. First, the child's preference and immediate safety. Second finger. Second, the petitioner's credibility. Third, documented evidence of financial control and coercion. Mark's smile twitched. Jessica asked Mark, Did you change access to joint accounts last night? Mark blinked. I don't recall. Jessica didn't flinch. You don't recall changing account permissions the night before an emergency custody hearing? His attorney objected. The judge waved it off. Jessica turned to the judge. We have time-stamped bank notifications, Your Honor. Mark's jaw tightened. Jessica then asked, Did you tell Lauren on a recorded call that things would move fast if she didn't come home? Mark looked toward his attorney, then back. I was upset. I didn't mean. Jessica nodded. So you admit you said it? Mark hesitated. And I felt Emily's grip tighten, because she was listening too, realizing her dad's mask wasn't airtight in here. Jessica reached for the next weapon. One more question, she said. Did you present paperwork bearing Lauren's signature that she denies signing? Mark's eyes flicked fast to Vanessa. Just once. But I saw it. And I swear I felt something inside me go ice calm. Because that wasn't just guilt. That was coordination. The judge leaned forward slightly. Mr. Carter. Mark cleared his throat. That's a misunderstanding. Jessica's voice stayed quiet, almost gentle. Deadlier than yelling. Then we would like a handwriting comparison, she said. And we would like the court to consider that a forged signature, paired with financial restrictions and a welfare check call, indicates a pattern of coercive control. Coercive control. Those words made Mark's smile finally die. And Vanessa. Vanessa shifted like she suddenly realized this courtroom wasn't going to crown her. The judge looked at me. Ms. Carter, she said, do you feel safe returning to the marital home tonight? I opened my mouth to speak. And Mark's attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, we object. The judge raised a hand. I asked her. The room went silent. Emily stared at me, eyes pleading. I swallowed, voice steady. No, I said. I don't. Mark's nostrils flared. His hands clenched. And for a split second the polished husband cracked. And I saw the man who threatened me on the phone. The judge's eyes didn't miss it. She nodded slowly. I will not make a final custody determination today, she said. But I will make temporary orders based on what I've heard. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear my own breathing. The judge continued, calm and firm. Until the next hearing, the child will remain with her mother. The father will have supervised visitation pending further review. Emily's breath broke out of her like she'd been drowning. Mark's face went rigid. Vanessa's lips parted like she couldn't believe it. And I should have felt relief. I did a little. But then the judge added one more sentence, one that made the room tilt again. And, she said, given the allegations of forged documents and financial manipulation, I am ordering an expedited review. If misconduct is found, there will be consequences. Mark's eyes snapped to me. Dark, furious, promising. Like he wasn't done. Not even close. And as we stood to leave, Richard Hale walked into the courtroom. Late, calm, holding a file. He met my eyes for 1 second. Then he looked at Mark. And he mouthed 2 words that made my blood turn cold. It's worse. The strangest thing about that moment wasn't the judge's words. It was Mark's face. Because when the court said Emily would stay with me, he didn't look heartbroken. He looked furious. Not like a father losing time with his kid. Like a man losing control of his property. And then Richard Hale walked in late, calm as ever, held a file like it was nothing, and mouthed 2 words at Mark. Those 2 words echoed in my head. It's worse. I didn't understand what that meant yet. But Mark did. I could tell because his whole body stiffened, like his spine turned to glass. Jessica leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't react. Just watch." So I watched. Mark avoided Richard's eyes. Vanessa's posture shifted, like she suddenly felt the room turn colder. Even Mark's attorney looked confused, flipping through papers like he was trying to catch up to a plan he didn't design. We walked out of the courtroom, and the hallway hit me like a wave. People moving, voices echoing, fluorescent lights too bright for a life falling apart. Emily clung to me. Not like a little kid. Like a 16-year-old trying to act grown while her world shakes anyway. "Mom," she whispered. "Are we okay?" I looked down at her and I felt something split in my chest. Pain and love at the same time. "We're safer than we were yesterday," I said. "That's the truth." Jessica motioned us toward a quiet corner. "Lauren, we're not done," she said, voice low. "He's going to try again. They always do." I nodded, but my stomach was still twisting around Richard's words. Worse than forging my signature. Worse than calling the police. Worse than trying to paint me as unstable. Before I could ask, Richard walked up. Not to me first. To Jessica. And when he spoke, his voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. "I'm done cleaning up his mess," he said. Mark snapped. "Richard." Richard didn't even look at him. He looked at Jessica and said, "He's been moving money for months." My breath caught. Emily's hand tightened in mine. Jessica didn't blink. "How?" Richard opened his file and slid out a stack of papers like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Shell accounts," he said. "Business accounts in names you'd never clock. Transfers timed around payroll." Then he pulled the stunt last night, locking her out, because he thought he'd finished the job before she could respond. Mark's voice rose sharp. "You're lying." Richard finally turned to him. And the way Richard looked at Mark. It wasn't anger. It was disgust. "No," Richard said quietly. "You lied. You forged. You used your kid as leverage. And you dragged me into it like I'm supposed to go down with you." Vanessa stepped forward, face tight. "Mark, you told me it was just a divorce. You told me she was crazy. And you needed a clean exit." Mark whipped his head toward her. "Shut up." Vanessa flinched like she'd just realized she wasn't special. She was convenient. Jessica held out her hand. "Mr. Hale," she said, "give me everything you have. Emails, transfers, any mention of forged signatures, any admission." Richard nodded once. "I have it." Mark's eyes locked on mine then. And in them I saw something that chilled me. Not love. Not regret. Promise. Like he was thinking, "You're going to pay for embarrassing me." Jessica stepped slightly in front of me like she could sense it too. "Lauren," she said softly, "we're leaving. Now." We walked out together. Me, Emily, Tasha, Jessica, like a small army. And I didn't turn around. Because I didn't want Mark to see the tiny tremble in my hands. Not after everything. Outside, the air was cold and clean. And for the first time in almost 24 hours, I took a full breath. Emily's voice cracked. Mom, are we going to lose our house? I swallowed. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I know this. He doesn't get to erase us. That night, Tasha made tea like she was trying to pour warmth into our bones. Emily sat wrapped in a blanket, silent, eyes swollen. She didn't cry loud. She just looked like a kid who learned something ugly about the world. About her own father. I sat beside her and said, "You can hate him for what he did. And you can still be a good person. Those two things can exist." Emily's eyes filled again. "I feel stupid." "No," I said firm. "You feel hurt. That's not stupid. That's human." She leaned into my shoulder, and I held her like I used to when she was little, except now her pain was heavier, older. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Jessica. File received. Emergency motion filed. My chest tightened. "It's moving," I whispered. Tasha's eyes narrowed. "Good." The next days blurred into a rhythm I never asked for. New bank account in my name only. Passwords changed. Location sharing turned off. Every conversation documented. And Mark didn't stop. He just changed tactics. He texted like a victim. Then like a bully. Then like a stranger. "You're ruining our family. You're doing this to Emily. You'll regret this." But every time the fear rose, I remembered something. The police officer's warning, Jessica's calm, Richard's file, and Mark's own recorded voice saying, things would move fast. So I made my own things move fast. Weeks later we were back in court. This time Mark didn't smile. Because this time Jessica didn't just speak. She presented. Bank logs. Email trails. Time-stamped access changes. The forged signature flagged for review. Richard's statements. Mark's admissions. The judge's face didn't change much. Judges don't perform emotion. But you could feel the room shift. And when the judge finally looked at Mark and said, "Mr. Carter, you understand the severity of these allegations," something in Mark's posture cracked. Not fully. But enough. Enough to show he wasn't untouchable. The court extended the temporary orders. Supervised visitation stayed in place. Financial restrictions were placed while the investigation moved forward. And Mark walked out with his head down for the first time in years. Outside the courthouse, Vanessa approached me. Lone. No red lip. No smug smile. Just a woman who suddenly looked smaller without Mark's confidence to hide behind. "Lauren," she said quietly. "I didn't know it was like that." I studied her for a long second. Then I said, "You knew enough to sit there and watch my daughter get hurt." Her eyes dropped. "You're right." And then she walked away. I didn't feel victory. Felt clarity. Because my win wasn't watching her lose. My win was this. I stopped being the woman everyone assumed would stay silent. Months later, Emily started breathing again. Not perfectly. Not magically. But she started laughing at little things. She started talking without looking over her shoulder first. We found a therapist who spoke to her like she mattered. Not like she was a child of divorce, but like she was a whole person. One night we were folding laundry together and Emily said softly, "Mom, I'm proud of you." I froze for a second, shirt in my hands. "Why?" asked voice tight. "Because you didn't let him rewrite you," she said. "He tried to make you look crazy. But you stayed you. And you protected me." I blinked hard. And I realized something I wish someone had told me years ago. Strength isn't loud. Strength is waking up after betrayal and still choosing your dignity. Strength is telling the truth even when people want you to keep it pretty. Strength is teaching your daughter, by example, that love without respect isn't love. It's control. And control always gets uglier when it starts slipping. If you're listening to this and you're in the middle of your own storm, hear me. You're not too emotional. You're not too much. You're not crazy for reacting to cruelty. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop begging someone to treat you right. And start protecting yourself like you matter. 'Cause you do. And one day, maybe sooner than you think, you'll look back and realize the moment you stopped shrinking was the moment you started living. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.